We'll hear from Samantha as well. Hi, Samantha, from Middlesbrough, who are one of the participants in the study. So let me pull up your presentation. Let's hear of your experience with the smart home pilot, if we can, Samantha.
Yeah, thank you for letting me to speak this afternoon about our involvement. So we were asked to be involved in the pilot, which was ran alongside foundations, and that was to pilot smart home technology to a small group of residents within our Middlesbrough area. So we identified 25 residents that would benefit from taking part in this trial. Our assistive tech installer was identified as the best person to sort of oversee the installation and maintenance of this equipment, and he works within our handyperson team installing telecare and minor adaptations. So he does have a lot of experience with those soft skills that were mentioned with those vulnerable client groups. So we sort of went out to our prevention colleagues and wider social care teams to advise that this pilot was happening and to offer the opportunity to put forward participants. And that was really with the hope of us getting quite a diverse pilot group. So we did find that the participants that we had taken part had very varying levels of physical health and support needs, but also, importantly, digital knowledge and skills. So we did have training provided for our handy person to give him the confidence and skills necessary for the installation of the tech. And we then tailored the smart home equipment we were offering based on the needs of the participants. So it wasn't sort of one standard installation for all. It did vary based on what their concerns around the home and what their needs were. So as it was mentioned, the equipment that was used was the Google Nest Hubs and the Amazon Echo Shows, and they're both video-capable devices and hubs. We did also put in video doorbells, smart plugs and bulbs, and for a couple of the participants, we used curtain tracks, which allowed them to open and close those curtains through voice command. So our experience with the installation processes and the times it took for us, we initially reached out to those people that had been put forward to explain the pilot and gain their consent. We did for some of them living within local authority housing have to go and get landlord consent for us to fix the doorbells and things to the exterior of those properties. So that initial sort of conversation and consent was taking about 30 minutes. What we found is the time that we'd sort of set aside to do the actual installation wasn't enough. So we did have 2 members of staff attending, and it was taking up to 2 hours for each installation. And I think a lot of that was purely down to having to talk through each piece of equipment and the various different apps that you've got to control each different thing. So, you have one app for bulbs, but then you might have another application for things like your curtain tracks. So it was lengthy, and the time taken to give people the confidence to use that kit when they're not very digital or tech savvy was a lot more than we thought that it would be. We also at that installation completed the initial questionnaire with people as well. So these are just some of the areas that were covered in the questionnaire. So it's going from people's digital literacy and how confident they are, through to independence, well-being, motivation, and associated risks. So that's what the questionnaire was built up, covering those sort of areas. We did find that at the end of the pilot, we didn't get responses from everyone that had taken part. So that did sort of put us on the back foot a little bit with the data that we were trying to collect to see whether there'd been an improvement. Just some of the questions which were asked centred around people's digital skills and how safe and secure people feel at home. What we found is in the initial responses, we were having sort of 5 people out of that 25 group saying that they felt that they worried quite often or didn't feel safe at all at home, and that had obviously totally changed by the end responses. So people were feeling safer, and obviously there'd been an improvement in mental well-being as well. So some of our learning opportunities, it was mainly around the time needed for the installation to gather all of the required information, individual email accounts, setting up those different applications on people's devices, mobiles and tablets. The participants' ability to navigate those applications and use the equipment to its full potential was low, and many participants would have benefited from some sort of ongoing digital training, was what we found with the people that took part in the pilot. The support required for recharging doorbells. We were unfortunately unable to install wired versions because of that need for electrical knowledge. So we were having to use devices that needed recharging, but because of the physical abilities of some of the participants, that they weren't able to do that themselves. So we were having to reattend to remove, charge, and then refit devices for charging. So that put a little bit of a strain on our handy person. And again, the reliance on our installer to support with minor issues. So things like reconnecting devices to Wi-Fi if there'd been an issue or a change in the Wi-Fi. Another common issue which we found was for the smart bulbs to work, then the light switches needed to be left turned on. And quite often people were having carers and family members visiting and they were flicking those light switches off, which was causing an issue then with the smart equipment being used and was getting reported to us as a fault, which obviously meant that we then had to reattend. So just the last slide is a bit of a reflection. The smart home equipment we found definitely promotes independence. It allows those that are otherwise unable to complete and manage daily tasks and control their home environment. One participant who got the curtain tracks fitted was particularly impressed and said, it made a real difference to his independence and being able to just get up on a morning and see the outside world, not having to wait for a carer to arrive to sort of start his day. If offering smart home equipment in future, I think the discussion that we have had is definitely that there would need to be some sort of onward referral to our digital inclusion team, which we're lucky to have, who offer ongoing training around digital tech to people, because to use the equipment to the full potential, we feel that would have been beneficial to the participants as part of this pilot.
So this was, I suppose, the idea was that can handy persons deliver kind of smart home technology as long as kind of alongside all the other bits and pieces that they do, like kind of fixing taps and repairing doors and putting up shelves and things. So what kind of, since the pilot, Samantha, how have you kind of continued to fit bits of kit, or how has it kind of impacted on your service since?
Yeah, we definitely think it's something we want to offer on a more broad scale. We are looking at exploring apps that would be able to sort of manage all of those devices in one. So I think Vocala was one that we'd been looking at. So it is something we're still pursuing and exploring. What we're finding is for the client group that we've got, they don't really have the digital skills to have these sort of various applications and manage these smart devices independently. It's quite overwhelming for people, and it does put a strain on our installer. And I think we had quite a small sample group of 25. If we were to have it brought out, on a wider scale than that, it would become potentially unmanageable for us. So it would need to be on a more managed platform.
Yes, and so in terms of kind of family members supporting you, did you have any cases where kind of maybe sons and daughters kind of took on that role, or were they more reliant on yourselves to kind of reset things?
It was quite mixed. We did have some that had great family support who had the digital skills to do that. But then obviously with our client base, some of them are extremely elderly, and their sort of support are also probably of an age where they didn't feel confident to sort of go in and problem solve with the kit. So yeah, I think it was mixed, but there was still, even with those that had family in place to support, there was still a reliance on us, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of links into to what Neil was asking. That, and I think kind of part of this pilot was to test this question out, and it sounds like there was quite a significant need to go back and kind of provide that support rather than just being kind of a one-off. Like I suppose, kind of when you fix a tap, you're there, you fixed it, and you're done. But this wasn't quite the same, was it?
No, there's definitely not a need for ongoing. If this is something that we'd have to offer, that there would need to be ongoing support for people.
Yeah. And in terms of funding, I don't think that this kind of in answer to your question, Melanie, I don't think this necessarily fits under kind of a normal DFG. I think it'd be in terms of using discretion potentially. But is there anything in terms of how I know kind of Middlesbrough is not necessarily your kind of typical local authority in terms of these sort of services, but can you tell us a bit about how kind of housing and social care work together?
Yeah, I mean, For us, Middlesbrough don't own their own sort of stock of houses. So I know there was talk of having this equipment sort of fit, so it's not done retrospectively. We don't own Middlesbrough don't own their own properties, so we would always, as a social care service, be fitting this in retrospect. I think. Yeah, from a funding point of view, the best person to answer your question is unfortunately my manager, who was not with us today. So I can't give you too much information on how it would be funded going forward, unfortunately.
Great, thank you. And yeah, thank you guys for posting those in the chat. I think it is slightly complicated where it's kind of a discretionary thing, and sometimes it might, I suppose, kind of blur between DFG and social care kind of minor adaptations, mightn't it? But I think that's where the key is to kind of joining services up potentially, particularly if you're actively part of your local Better Care Fund. So I think, at least the aim of this pilot was to see how well it worked, and I think kind of a lot of reports kind of come up, or a lot of research projects sometimes know what they want to find, and then kind of skew the skew the research slightly to get to that point. But we're very much interested in kind of what it was actually like for both Middlesbrough and Yorkshire. I think you've kind of heard today exactly what some of the issues were, and if you want to read the report, the full findings are now available on the foundation's website. So thank you, Yaz. Thank you, Samantha, for joining us this afternoon and sharing the work you've been doing over the last, I guess, 2-3 years now, isn't it?